Nomadland, a movie about a woman in her 60s who embarks on a journey through the American West, living as a van-dwelling modern-day nomad. This movie won 3 Oscars, and it was nominated for 6 Oscars. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2021. And I've simply got one question. How? I just watched this movie. I watched it last night, and it's been roaming around my mind all night. I don't get it. And this isn't the first time I've said this with a nominee for the Academy Awards this year. I said it about Sound of Metal as well. I didn't get the hype. But this one, I said for weeks. I've been waiting weeks, possibly even months to watch this movie because it hasn't come out in Ireland until just this week or last week. It's out on Disney Plus if you haven't seen it. I wouldn't recommend to watch it, but there we go. But Nomadland, it's been winning all of the awards. It's been getting praise left, right, and center from critics. My question is, why? This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that so people will share this and go, look what this guy's saying about Nomadland. I genuinely don't get it. I don't know if I watched the wrong movie. It's got Frances McDormand in it. It said Chloe Zhao on it. It matched up with the trailer. There's nothing special about this movie whatsoever. It's one of the worst told stories, one of the worst edited movies. The sound isn't great. The acting isn't good. What are people seeing in this movie that I'm missing? Sure, I can get that there's maybe like people saying, oh, it's super realistic and this is more like, it's almost like a documentary where you're seeing this person's life, and it's just a shit movie, guys. Pure and simple. I'll break it down why I don't think it's very good. But my basic review is it's feckin' terrible. And that's being polite about it. So I said on last week's movie film show that the movie's probably gonna be overhyped for me. As I've mentioned, it's won all these awards and it's got great critic reviews and everything. I was kind of expecting it to be a super sensational movie that's gonna blow my mind. And at the same time, I also knew it was more than likely overhyped and it was never gonna live up to expectations. So I tried going in expecting nothing. So I sat down, I started watching it, and the film starts with Frances McDormand taking a piss in the field. That's where we start off from. Good jumping off point. So they establish she's living in a van and there's a storage unit with some people's stuff in it. And then she sets off and the editing is very choppy, it's very fast. So fast that Frances McDormand has probably less than 5 scenes where she says more than 5 lines. Like it's bang, 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 but somehow the movie's super slow despite the editing being really fast. The editing I just felt was one of the worst parts of it because the scenes are so short. It's scenes. They can barely even be called scenes. They're like snippets. So the snippets are so short, you've no time to develop the character, to develop relationships. And what happens is you end up with these moments throughout the movie where characters are having these big emotional goodbyes. And for me anyway, there was no empathy behind them because we didn't get enough time to see the characters bond. You see small little flashpoints of their friendships where they like talk for 2 seconds and then they cut to the next scene and then they cut off to the next part and they're working together 6 months later and then they're leaving and then they move on to the next character that she interacts with. So somehow the scenes end up being really fast, but overall the movie is very dragged out. And more importantly, the character, the main character, there's no time for the character to develop or grow or have anything about them. The main character of the movie at the beginning of the film and the end of the film is the exact same. She doesn't change, she doesn't have any revelations. There's a minor revelation where she's like, oh, you have to let the past go type of thing. You have to let the loved ones move on or some shit like that. Very generic. But there's no character arc. There's nothing special about the whole movie. There's no big scene even where you go, yeah, that's the moment that this movie got Oscar nominated. All of the films I have reviewed that have been Academy Award nominated, you can look at all those movies and they all have at least one major scene where you go, yeah, that's a standout moment. That's a great bit of cinema. That's the moment this movie was Oscar nominated and accredited as one of the best movies of the year. In Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, we had Chadwick Boseman's monologue about what happened to his mother and he showed amazing emotion. That's a fantastic scene. In Trial of Chicago 7, you have that horrible scene with Bobby Seale where he's being chained up and that just, you know, boils your blood, but that's an amazing scene because it evokes so much passion and emotion and fires you up. But to hate that judge. Promising Young Woman had several fantastic scenes in the same way, and the ending in particular was just shocking and mind-blowing, but she also had scenes like the scene with the college admissions people where you go, holy fuck, she might be one of the biggest villains ever. Even Sound of Metal had a scene at the table where he reveals to the other camp guy, the guy running the camp, that he got his implant, and they had this big emotional scene, and I could see why that film was nominated despite not enjoying the movie myself. Something like Judas and the Black Messiah had many big scenes and big story points, and it had that scene with Fred Hampton with his execution, and that scene was an unbelievable scene. Again, similar to the Bobby Seale stuff that just boils your blood and go, how could this happen? But that had an amazing cinematic scene. Nomadland has no scenes like that. It has no standout points, it has no standout moments within the story. It's just a load of snippets thrown together. Now, as I mentioned at the start, there is something about the movie that it kind of feels like a documentary, and I'm sure that must have been intentional. It must have been by design that Chloe Zhao wanted the movie to feel like a documentary, like you're watching an actual nomad, and the way she's interacting with people, because the side actors are the thing that made it feel like that, because their dialogue, the way their dialogue was recorded, and the interactions she has with the people. The acting was so bad from everybody in the movie, apart from Frances McDormand, that it had to be intentional to tell them act like they're in a documentary. This movie was one Louis Theroux voiceover away from being an actual documentary. And you might be saying, yeah, but that just shows how she captured reality and how the film is super realistic to the actual nomad experience. Well, no, it's just that was the overall feel of the movie, that it was like a documentary, but not a good documentary, a documentary where nothing happens. She sits in a bucket at one stage, maybe that was like the standout point. I'd say the editing was bad. The acting from everybody apart from Frances McDormand was bad. The music was repetitive and kind of got annoying towards the end. And then at the end, there was about 5 or 6 false endings. There's moments where the character, Frances McDormand's character, would walk off screen and they'd hold on the shot, like at Dave's house, who was kind of like the romantic interest, but kind of not at the same time. So she gets up from his table and walks out, and then they show the empty table in the window, and they hold on it for a minute as if they're about to just pop to black and put the credits up. But then they just jump to the next scene. And then we have the scene where her friend Swanky has died, which you could tell was going to happen about 5 minutes into the movie, or 5 minutes after you met her. Swanky at some point has said that when she dies, she wants all her friends to sit around a campfire and throw stones into the fire. So they do that. And Frances McDormand's character throws her rock into the fire, the ashes go up, the sparks go up in the sky, the camera pans up to the sky, and that's where I fully expected it to go black and then credits, but no, they continued on. And Frances McDormand ends up in a house, her old house, and she just wanders through the house, and then it's like, oh, cool house. And then she goes outside, and then she walks off screen, and they hold on the field outside. And again, you're expecting to just cut to black. Nope, keep going. And then they do that thing that you get in a lot of amateur independent movies, where they take the first 10 minutes of the movie, they flip it on its head, and they repeat it at the end of the movie. So she retraces her steps, goes back to the storage unit we saw at the start, goes down the same road we saw at the start, all that sort of stuff. Everything apart from going for the piss in the field again. Which, as I say, it's a very amateur thing to do, especially for a Hollywood movie. The editing was very amateur in itself too. The movie has no standout points. The acting from all the side characters is terrible. The music is boring and repetitive, and the movie, because of the false endings that I mentioned, just drags so much at the end. The last 20 minutes, it's like pulling teeth. Nothing's happening. The character keeps walking off screen like it's ending. The movie, you can tell, isn't going anywhere in particular. The character's not trying to achieve anything. She's not trying to find herself. She's not trying to do anything. She's just wandering around aimlessly. And you might say, well, that's what nomads do. They wander around, they try to survive. But that's not what she was doing. She was just wandering around for the sake of it. The movie could have ended half an hour earlier. And similarly, at the start of the movie, she's wandering around doing nothing that leads to nothing in the story. And the movie could have started 30 minutes later. Like, there's a point where 30 minutes later, she's lying in her van looking at a photo, and that's where the movie could have started. There's so much of the movie that could have just been cut out. Then again, the whole movie could have been cut out because there's no story to it. There's random encounters and random relationships, I guess, with people, but as I mentioned, the editing is so bad and choppy. The scenes are so short. No relationship can really develop on screen, at least to the point where we care about it. The weird thing is, this is based on a book, so I'm sure there's gonna be loads of people in the comments going, oh, you just don't get the story, the book's amazing. This isn't the book, this is the movie. And the movie was a very poorly made movie in my opinion. And I'm sure there'll be people out there saying, yeah, but the Academy Awards don't think so, they know better than you do. Well, clearly not, because that's a fucking dickhead thing said by me. I said it on the movie film show last week. I don't think the Academy actually watched the movies this year, because some of the nominations were very strange and out of place, like Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya both being up for Best Supporting Actor, despite being the two main actors in Judas and the Black Messiah. Lakeith Stanfield should have been up for lead actor, and Chadwick Boseman similarly was a supporting actor in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but was nominated for Best Lead Actor. There was various things like that. And then Mank got nominated for Best Picture even though it was terrible. Sound of Metal got nominated for Best Picture even though it was terrible. This film got nominated for Best Cinematography, and the cinematography is really poor. Even the camera quality, the image quality is very indie filmmaker from 2012. And I know I was there doing that stuff. You can buy a camera for, you all probably have cameras in your pockets, in your phones that can produce better quality pictures than was in Nomadland. The camera was really shaky for a lot of it. The shots were really close up. There was like a lot of extreme close-ups. There was nothing stand out about the cinematography, and yet it got nominated for that. It got nominated for Best Editing, I believe, which, as I say, the editing was one of the worst parts. Frances McDormand is a very good actress. She's been in some very good movies, Fargo in particular, but she won the award for Best Actress this year. So since I watched Promising Young Woman, I've obviously been calling for Carey Mulligan to win the Best Actress award. And so I can understand how if people have seen that, they'll be like, oh, you're just bitter she didn't win. But I don't think Frances McDormand is anything special in this movie, because I don't think she gets any chance to be special in the movie, because, as I mentioned, the scenes are so short. I don't think there's more than 5 scenes where she has more than 5 lines of dialogue. And I'd argue that any actor in the world, especially any A-list actor, could win an Academy Award if they didn't have to say more than 5 lines in any scene, because they don't have anything to remember. All they do is focus really hard for like 2 minutes per scene. And then they'll put in an amazing performance and win the Academy Award. Whereas I think over the entire movie, Carey Mulligan was fantastic. I don't want to go on about Carey Mulligan in particular, but like even the likes of Viola Davis was fantastic in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. There was better performances than Frances McDormand this year, and I don't understand why she's won it. No disrespect to the woman, she's a fantastic actor, as I say, been in some fantastic movies. Fargo in particular is a particular favourite of mine, but I don't get how she won that. And then Chloe Zhao, I really don't get why Chloe Zhao won for Best Director. I mentioned earlier that it must be intentional trying to make it look like a documentary. You could make the case of, well, she achieved what she was trying to achieve, and that's good directing, getting that feeling of a documentary into the movie. But the movie is boring. It really is. It's poorly paced, poorly edited, the choice of music was bad, the performances she got from the supporting actors was poor, and I don't see where the best directing comes in. Now, at the same time, she is directing Eternals, and I'm really looking forward to that one. I am looking forward to her next project. I do believe she is a good filmmaker, I just don't believe this film is good in any shape or form, or that the award for Best Director was warranted here. Similarly, and more importantly, Nomadland should not have won Best Picture at all. There is no way you can put this movie in the same bracket as the likes of The Godfather, because that's what you're doing by giving it the Best Picture award. The Godfather won the Best Picture award all the way back in the 70s. There's been various other films as well, and you're putting this movie in the same bracket as that movie and saying these movies are on par. They're both the Best Picture of that year. Now, you could claim it was a poor year for movies. You know, they only had 8 nominees in total, 4 of which were terrible. 3 or 4 were terrible. Of the nominees for Best Picture, there was better options. And even outside it, I was saying for so long, Soul should win Best Picture because it had the best story. In my opinion, was one of the best told stories. And if it was a live action movie, it would have won Best Picture. Because it was animated, I don't think it was given the same respect. But I think overall, Soul was one of the best stories of last year and the best told movies. Promising Young Woman was a fantastic movie. Judas and the Black Messiah was a fantastic movie. Trial Chicago 7 was a fantastic movie. And the interesting thing is, on IMDb, Judas and the Black Messiah, Trial Chicago 7, and Promising Young Woman all have a higher rating from the public than Nomadland does. So that would suggest that film lovers who go time to beat to rate movies would seem to agree that those movies are all better than Nomadland tell a better story. The movie shocked me in that how little actually happens within the movie. For all the hype about it and all the awards it wins, this movie has no redeeming features. It's nothing special about it. I don't get the hype whatsoever. And on top of that, apart from being one of the best movies of the year, it surely has to be one of the worst movies of the year. Maybe there's some mix up and it was supposed to win the Razzie, because this movie, as I've mentioned many times now, has nothing special about it. And it's not just that it was overhyped, it's that it's a bad movie. Like, you can force yourself to tell yourself that it's a good movie, be like, oh yeah, I love when she shits in the bucket. I don't get the appeal of this movie. Like, okay, you want to live that nomad lifestyle? Sure, it might give a representation of that lifestyle, but there's thousands of documentaries out there, I'm sure, that do the same thing. This is a faked documentary of sorts, of an experience which doesn't happen. So as you can tell, I'm getting a little bit worked up about it, so maybe I should calm down a little bit about it. But you might not be surprised to see, I'm not a big fan of Nomadland. Not just because it was overhyped. I want to state that it's not just because I overhyped it in my mind because I saw all the awards and everything. I was just blown away by how bad this movie was overall. And surely I can't be the only one out there saying it. Surely not. Let me know what you thought of Nomadland. For me personally, I've been racking my brains for the last few hours trying to figure out what am I going to do rating wise for this one. Do I give it a 1? I haven't given any movie a 1. I didn't even give Stowaway a 1, but Stowaway had something about it, not a great thing, but had something about it. Nomadland had nothing about it. There's no standout moments, there's no good acting, there's no good editing, the visuals aren't great, I'd say the music's boring and repetitive. It has no redeeming features, and I think because of that, I have to give it the first ever 1 out of 10. The first 1 out of 10 I've ever given on this channel. Nomadland, the movie which won the Best Picture Academy Award in 2021, is getting a 1 out of 10 from me. Not just to be, you know, going against the grain or to get people talking or clicking on it, because it's a bad movie. It just is. And I really had to question whether the people behind the Academy Awards even watched the movie, because surely nobody could watch this movie and go, yeah, that's an amazing movie. Surely not. But I sincerely want to hear your thoughts on Nomadland. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what I missed. Tell me why it's bad. But with all that said and done, thank you so much for watching.